Welcome to Brainiac News, the show we do. I mean, we've done it a bunch of days this week, and we did a bunch of days last week. It seems like it's going to be a thing, which is cool. As you can probably notice if you watched the last Brainiac episode, I'm way better lit in this episode, and that's because I actually added a fill light to my little setup. It's not like a professional fill light. It is literally just a lamp from another point in my house. I do have a ring light. My fiance bought it for because she has a nice Instagram and stuff. So having the fill light makes me look a lot better, and I really appreciate it. It's nice. So, what are we doing today? We're looking at the news, so let's dive right in. Let's go to our next little stream overlay here. And this is what I named the stream because I thought it was a very interesting story, just because usually stuff like this doesn't really make the news, and it doesn't seem like there's that much of a focus on it. So I thought we could talk about it. Papillion woman faces 102 years in prison for luring boys with alcohol and pot. Prosecutors said she lured 12 and 13-year-old boys with alcohol and gummy bears infused with marijuana, then sexually assaulted them. A judge in Sarpy County Monday sentenced a Papillion woman, Christina Greer, to up to 102 years in prison for sexual assault of a child. Prosecutors said the assaults occurred when friends of Greer's daughter came to the household for sleepovers in 2017 and 2018. The victims were boys aged 12 and 13. Court documents alleged Greer groomed 3 boys to have sex with her by providing them alcohol and drugs. Investigators retrieved sexually explicit photos of Greer from a phone belonging to one of the boys. Greer received a sentence of 64 to 102 years in prison for the multiple felony charges. That is absolutely insane. You don't normally hear about stuff like this. I mean, one of the big red flags that pops up in my mind is, again, why is anybody letting their little boys stay over at a little girl's house? It's not, they said it was friends of the daughter, right? Why are 12 and 13-year-olds having sleepovers together? It just seems weird. Sleepovers are kind of it's an interesting prospect, even if you're of the same sex. It's kind of weird, but to have that situation. And also, we don't really hear about women preying on boys as much, and I don't think as much is made about them, as much of a big issue is made about them as what happens to men when they go to prison for that. I wonder if there is really a chomo vibe in jail for women as much as there is for men. I honestly don't know. I haven't been to a female prison, and I hope I never do. All right. It's still hot. Yes, this is news, but it is record-breakingly hot, so I guess it is kind of news. So we're going to be talking about Oregon, my most favorite place in the world. It's not. Pacific Northwest heat wave shatters temperature records. It reached 115 degrees in Portland, Oregon, Monday, the second day in a row that the city has broken a heat record. Salem, Oregon also sets the record. Now, they better. Oh, they didn't. I'm going to have to Google it. Great. 115 Fahrenheit into Celsius. Let's do this. So, whoa, that is freaking hot. That is real hot. Because I'm Canadian, I have no understanding of how hot that, of initially how hot that was. That is freaking hot. Oh my God. Why is anybody outside? Freaking, these crazy monkeys are just so crazy. And by monkeys, I do mean primates. A heat dome has enveloped the Pacific Northwest. That sounds horrifying. That sounds like something MODOK would put over the Pacific Northwest to with his weather dominator or whatever. And I know that's a G.I. Joe reference, so don't at me. A heat dome has enveloped the Pacific Northwest, driving temperatures to extreme levels, with temperatures well above 100 degrees and creating dangerous conditions in a part of the country. Unaccustomed to the oppressive summer weather or air conditioning, one of the hottest cities in the region on Monday was Salem, Oregon, about 45 miles southwest of Portland, where it reached 117 degrees in the afternoon, a record for the city, the National Weather Service said. At Portland International Airport in Oregon. Oh, great. Call of Duty Warzone's updating. Thanks for interrupting my stream, jerk. At Portland International Airport in Oregon, it reached up to 115 degrees on Monday. It's hot. The high on Monday. Who cares about the weather? I know who cares about the weather. I was hoping we'd be able to see some really cool pictures. Oh, man. All right. Okay. On Monday, Seattle broke a record for the highest temperature ever recorded by the National Weather Service there at 108 degrees. The previous high of 105 degrees had been set in July 2009. And that's not very good because one of the main things I think about Seattle, I think of big tech, and I think of the mass amount of homeless people who live there, partially because of big tech. So I think because of that, it's just, it's very interesting, and I wonder how many homeless people are being affected by the extreme heat right now. Also, if I was living in Oregon or a place that, like, doesn't usually get heat waves in the summer, I'd still buy an air conditioner, just in case. I mean, trust me, you don't want to live in the heat. You never want to live in the heat. Just have air conditioners. It costs less than a generator. You know, I can survive without the power. I mean, like, I guess that also means that the heat and cooling go off as well, especially if it was a heat wave. Oh my God. I don't even want to think about this anymore. I'm just scaring myself. On Monday, okay, so goodnight, cruel Sana. I mean Seattle. Maddie Crystal, a meteorologist for the National Weather Service in Seattle, wrote on Twitter on Saturday night, along with a photo of 2 air conditioning units that she had running. The National Weather Service. Oh, this right here is Austin Wilde rests with her 2 dogs at a cooling center in the Oregon Convention Center in Portland on Sunday. Sad. The National Weather Service issued excessive heat warnings on Monday for the search for much of Washington and Oregon, as well for sections of California, Idaho, and Nevada. Last month, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration adjusted its climate norms. Baseline data of temperature, rain, snow, and other weather variables collected over 3 decades at thousands of locations across the country. We're really seeing the fingerprints of climate change in the new normals, Michael Pilecki, who manages the project at NOAA's National Center for the Environmental Information, said when the normals were updated. Last year tied 2016 as the hottest year on record as global temperatures continued their relentless rise brought on by the emission of heat-trapping greenhouse gases. The meteorological... all right, we're done reading the story. I've messed it up too much, you know? You know when, like, you're doing Rock Band and you mess up the riff and I think that, like, it is crazy. It is crazy to see how global warming is affecting us. And I mean, with Seattle's homeless population, I mean, like, 105 is really hot. I really don't know how that situation's going to be. And I would imagine there's probably a massive crime wave going on in the States right now, because when there's heat waves, there's a lot of crime for some reason. I see I have one little viewer in the chat. Hello. Come for the news? Well, we're gonna, you know what? I'm gonna put this later because it's less important, honestly. Who cares about celebrities? Seriously. Doesn't matter. All right. Police officers will flood Times Square after another bystander is shot. I just want to shame the New York Times for making me turn ad block off. I hated that. Actually, it wasn't, they made me subscribe, which was annoying. Because I had to give them my phone number, and it's like, okay, this is a weird sort of information extortion we're doing here, but all right. Dozens of additional police officers, some working undercover, will be dispatched to Times Square, Mayor Bill de Blasio said Monday, a day after a tourist was struck by a stray bullet in broad daylight. The shooting, the second in Times Square in 2 months, came amid an increase in gun violence in New York City that began during the pandemic and has not subsided, and led to chaos in the iconic tourist destination at a time when the city is seeking to lure back visitors. In May, stray bullets fired during a dispute struck 3 bystanders in Times Square, including a 4-year-old child. That's heavy. That's real heavy. At a news conference on Monday, Mr. de Blasio said that he was going to flood the zone with police following Sunday's shooting. The bottom line is we are going to flood the zone in Times Square with additional officers to make sure the situation is resolved once and for all. Once and for all? I don't know. I think the only way for things to be solved once and for all is if Superman came and just, like, took everyone's guns away. And even then, all the situations aren't resolved because in some situations you kind of need guns. And what's crazy about guns, and I mean, like, I'd much rather be shot than stabbed, personally, just from all the people who have been both shot and stabbed who say the preference. It's better to get shot than it is to get stabbed. The likelihood, if you don't get punctured in a major, like, if in a major organ or whatever, it can do a lot less damage than being stabbed or hit with a hammer. I mean, I believe yesterday we covered a story about a woman. Oh, you know what? We didn't. I was watching an episode of Abba and Preach, and I thought I was covering it because I'm an idiot. The victim, Samuel Polini, age 21, is a United States Marine and a recent graduate of the Citadel Military College in South Carolina. According to a statement released by the college, he was shot once in the back and transported to the hospital in stable condition, the police said. Nearly 800 people have been shot in the city through June 20th. Jeez. 800? I mean, there are a lot of people living in that city, so I mean, like, it's probably a tiny fraction, but that is nuts. The highest number over the same period since 2002. The increase in gun violence this year has cast a shadow on the city's reopening after 15 months of lockdown. New York, a year-long state of emergency was finally lifted last week, and Times Square is once again a bustling cacophony. On Saturday night, a full-length Broadway show was put on for a paying audience for the first time in more than 400 days, when Bruce Springsteen revived his show at the St. James Theater. We were up until the shooting. First off, it would have been really cool to go to that first Broadway show with Bruce Springsteen. Oh my God, could you imagine the energy in the audience of all the New Yorkers? Because, like, I would imagine it would probably mostly be New Yorkers. I'm sure there'd be, like, a few outsiders there, but, like, probably be mostly, like, wealthy or, you know, well-to-do New Yorkers who have been so miserable, trapped in a city where I would say the lockdown affects New Yorkers probably more than most of the population. I mean, when you're living stacked up on each other like that, it's crazy. Now, I've actually been to New York City. I've driven in New York City, and my favorite thing to say when I, like, say that I'm a decent driver, I have driven in downtown Manhattan before. So it's a city that's very near and close to my heart. And I mean, honestly, like, it's a 7-hour drive to Vancouver. I mean, it's like a 24-hour drive to get to a city in the same province as me. So I definitely care a lot about New York City. It's very important. In surveillance video recorded of the incident, 3 men can be seen arguing near a corner in Times Square when a 4th man approaches and opens fire, according to a law enforcement official who spoke on the condition of anonymity. People across the block scattered. Times Square was averaging around 185,000 visitors a day last week, Mr. Harris said, and 200,000 this past weekend. The numbers are a far cry from pandemic levels when the area averaged around from pre-pandemic levels when the area averaged around 360,000 visitors a day. When I went, it was probably around 360,000. And it was also very cool to be able to go there pre-pandemic, right? You know, I actually had the chance to see New York before all this hit, because it's probably a very different place now, I would imagine. In surveillance video recorded of the incident, 3 men can be seen arguing out. Yeah, I already read that. This is what happens when you follow a streamer at the beginning. They're not good at what they're doing, and sometimes you mess up. Times Square. I also read that one already too. Still, Harris said they represented a significant increase from 2020, and many business owners hope the uptick was a sign of progress. He was hopeful that the increased police presence could allay concerns that Times Square was unsafe. We are back, he said. This is a speed bump in our recovery. On Monday afternoon, Times Square hummed with activity, and tourists seemed to take new shots of the shooting in stride. Many said they had looked into the safety and crime statistics before their visit and that the episode hadn't surprised them. It was a little unsettling, but I feel like it's typical for New York right now, said Destiny Moore, who was visiting the city from New Jersey for the first time to celebrate her 21st birthday with friends. It's crazy that you lived 21 years in New Jersey, which is super close to New York City, and you never went to New York City. I mean, like, isn't that like Disneyland kind of? I mean, like, I treated it kind of like Disneyland when I went. I was just so happy to be there and happy to see everything. It was very cool. So is this troubling? Like when the police have to swarm, it's crazy. And like I would have to say that the police presence in New York City, when there was an average of about 360,000 people in the city, like during the day or at night or whatever, I think it was per day, so per 24-hour period. The police presence in New York City was absolutely insane. There was literally like armed cops. And when I say armed, I don't mean they just had like a pistol. There was like guys with not AK-47s, whatever the police military carbines are. They were on every street corner. There were police everywhere. You couldn't look in any direction and not see a cop. And I think in an area like that, you kind of have to do it that way. It's unfortunate. I mean, it probably like totally changes the culture of the city. But like, I would probably argue that it would change the culture of the city in a very positive way. So I think this is it's ultimately a good thing. There should always be a ton of cops in Manhattan, but also just straight up Times Square. It just needs a ton of cops. Like there's no way to get around it. There's too many people. There's too many variables. All right, this one, Oregon heat wave sees hundreds sent to hospitals as U.S. and Canada face record temperatures. I wonder if that is the evil countries in the East using their weather dominators to make us hot. Like, it's possible, right? A life-threatening northwest heat wave is affecting parts of the U.S. and Canada, has reportedly seen as many 200 people in Oregon sent to the hospital with heat-related illnesses. I know I already talked about the record-breaking thing, but I wanted to make sure that I covered how many people were actually going into the hospital. And I'm a janitor. I work all night long, and a part of that makes it so that I'm super, like I work all night long and I sleep during the day when most people are working. And because of that, I am super hypersensitive to the sun. So much so that if I'm out in the sun for like an hour, I'll get a sunburn with no sunscreen on. And even when I do put on sunscreen, I can still really feel the effects of the sun. I've had situations where I've gone out without sunscreen and I've gotten legitimately gotten heat stroke. I've passed out. Like, I am not good in the sun. Like I'm like essentially a vampire, and but I think I can take it, mostly because like everyone else around me is like dealing with the sun. So like, why can't I deal with its effects? I mean, like the sun is a big ball of radiation that's constantly radiating down. And, if you see people who spend a lot of time in the sun when they're old people, you definitely see the negative effects that constantly being cooked by a radioactive oven has on your skin. All right. Gas stations in some states are running out of fuel ahead of the 4th of July weekend, and an oil truck driver shortage is to blame. First off, I don't like blaming anything on anyone. I mean, like, let's not blame that. I mean, oil truck driver shortage. I mean, I thought you guys were supposed to be automating that out. I thought that was like going to be a thing. I thought that, if there's a need for these people, maybe they should be paid better. Maybe we should give truckers a little bit more respect. You know how often, I'm a janitor, so I know. People just disrespect your job. All the jobs, every single job that there is, kind of needs to be done for our society to run well. And to think that I hate the amount of disrespect. Like, a politician probably wouldn't respect a truck driver, I would imagine. Just because they're like, well, what do you do? It's like, I get all the supplies everywhere. Do you like your phone? Do you like your car? Do you like your clothes? Like, that all needs to be shipped in on a truck or a train. And a lot of the times it's done with trucks. So as millions of America hit the road for 4th of July weekend, many will be forced to grapple with elevated fuel prices and gasoline shortages. The national average fuel price the holiday weekend will be about $3.11 per gallon, 43% higher than this time last year and about 2% higher than Memorial Day weekend, according to Gas Buddy analysis. I don't know how good Gas Buddy analysis is. Fuel prices are always super interesting. I'm not even sure how they're set. It's like, is it literally just set by the demand? Is it set by how much it costs to get it out of the ground? What sources it's coming from? It's very interesting, and smarter people than me are thinking about that. There have also been several fuel outages reported at gas stations across the country. Gas stations in North Carolina, Colorado, and Iowa have run out of gas, according to Tom Cloza, the global head of energy analysis for the Oil Price Information Service, told CNN Gas Buddy analysis Patrick Dahan told the publication that Indianapolis and Columbus, Ohio, have also reported gas outages, and the number of stations in the U.S. facing shortages is continuing to grow. I mean, definitely concerning. I remember like a little while ago, there was news about people in the United States putting gasoline into like, what was it, like shopping bags or something? It was something like that. Like these gas shortages are just going to keep happening. And I mean, I think that's going to be really big for the push to move to electric vehicles. I know that it's not financially good for some people, but I mean, I think that maybe when gas becomes like when we have super shortages, especially if we go to war with one of the major gas producers, just in case, who knows, having these vehicles would be good. And I also think that, I mean, what's likely going to happen if gas gets too expensive, people aren't going to be able to afford to pay for their cars. People aren't going to be able to do that. So instead, what they're going to have to do is they're going to probably have to use an app where there's like a big company. I mean, like BlackRock, which is like an investment company, is doing this in the States right now. They're doing something really weird where they're buying up like houses that people are supposed to be living in, but this is an investment company, and then they're renting out the houses to those people, which is, I don't understand why that's legal. Why are big investment companies allowed to buy people's dwellings? There should be some sort of separation there, right? It's not fair. We can't do that. And I mean, some of these big companies that do these things, like, they're like multi-generational companies. Like, even my company was started by my dad when I was like a real little kid, and he worked his whole life on it. And you know, I worked in it since I was like 14 years old. And so, yeah, I've been working at this business for 10 years. And because of that, we have stacked advantages. And it's not fair. It's not fair that I should be able to buy a house before everybody else in my generation. And I mean, like, people like millennials are having the hardest time being able to buy homes. And part of it's because the boomer generation just keeps holding on to this wealth, and they're very good at being greedy. Very good. We've seen this through the entirety of their generation. They completely destroyed the world when they were the generation that was really supposed to save it and conserve it and protect it. And instead, they betrayed us all. So, pretty upsetting. And I think gas, I mean, like, and what I was getting into is that they're probably going to build a company that owns electric vehicles, right? And you'll be able to call this, use your app, have a car, get you to somewhere, right? It's like Uber. Like same concept as Uber, but yeah, like it'll just be like that, and you'll never be able to have your own car. You'll never be able to go out on a nice little drive, or hey, maybe they'll do that for you too. Who knows? I mean, if they're gonna have a service like that, and there is no personal cars anymore, or the people who have personal cars are super rich, there needs to be ways for us to maintain some sort of freedom. And I think that's like the issue with stuff like this, with prices and economies, is that we need to be maximizing the freedom of the laborers. You need laborers for any society to work. And the only way to make them happy is to give them freedom, right? To let them go on a drive. Anyway, I'm rambling. Next story. Let's get into it. Oh no, don't play the video. Last time I played a video on this on this radio program, I got my video taken down, and that was a lot of work. So I don't want to have to go through all that work just to get my stuff taken down again. So I learned my lesson. Although I do wish there was like some sort of plug-in for Google or whatever. And if you're a avid like programmer out there, I would love to be able to have something where I could see if a video has copyright on it. It would be incredibly invaluable to anybody who does this kind of commentary. All right, the Supreme Court ruled on Tuesday that the government can indefinitely detain certain immigrants who say they will face persecution or torture if they are deported to their native countries. Over the dissent of 3 liberal justices, the court held 6-3 that the immigrants are not entitled to a hearing about whether they should be released while the government evaluates their claim. Justice Samuel Alito wrote for the court that those aliens are not entitled to a bond hearing. Wow. Justice Samuel Alito. We're going to shame this guy. We're taking a look at this joker. Hey, Samuel Alito. These are human beings. These are our species. They need somewhere to be able to go. They really need somewhere to be able to go. And to just say, well, they don't deserve a bond hearing. I mean, they're not American citizens. You know, America really did build a lot of the world. And you know what? Your country was literally built on racism. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, it's an uncomfortable fact. I mean, it wasn't built on racism itself. It was built on wanting to get away from the British. But I mean, like, what America is now and like the beauty of America came from the war between the Confederacy and the Union. It's really important, and it's like a major part of your history. And a lot of that had to do with Confederates being the Confederacy wanting to be able to regulate themselves. And there's there's something wrong about, and I think this is what, during the Civil War, I think this is like what the problem was. There's something wrong with a state being like, you're a person or you're not a person. No. Everybody's a person. I don't care if you're an illegal alien. I don't care about that at all. And you know what? Maybe you could argue that I'm in Canada, so we don't have to have that issue. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of illegal Americans living in Canada. It's super easy to cross the border, and a lot of you guys are unhappy. Also, we wouldn't know if there were illegal aliens in this country. Really? I mean, do you think if Americans were crossing the border, jumping the border like illegal aliens, they would look like illegal aliens? They would act like illegal aliens? We literally have the same culture. Are we really that different? I'm a 7-mile drive from New York City, but I'm like a 24-hour drive from Thunder Bay. Am I closer to them or here? What's with this proximity bias, and why does the proximity bias go away the moment there's a freaking border in your way? You know why I think it goes away? I think it's because it's easier. I think it's because the Americans really want to just be them, and they don't want to realize that we're all human beings. We all deserve basic rights, basic freedoms. They need somewhere to go. They really do. And we need to be working to build somewhere for them, because they're coming. And either you can shoot all of them or you can house them. And I don't want to be on the side of history that shoots all of them. Personally, I don't want to be attached to that. I don't want to be part of it. And if it's happening, I want to fight against it tooth and nail. And that's what I'm doing now. In some way, in some respect. Sorry I'm heated. This guy's a jerk. Again, I shouldn't assume that. Let's see if he had any follow-up stuff to say. Maybe he digs himself a less deeper grave. Justice Samuel Alito wrote for the court that those aliens are not entitled to a bond hearing. You know, I'm probably putting a lot of malice that he probably doesn't actually have on that. To be fair to Mr. Justice Samuel Alito, the case involves people who had been previously deported and when detained after re-entering the United States illegally claimed that they would be persecuted or tortured if sent back. I mean, that could totally be true. Just because again, deportation is so horrible. It's a really horrible practice. America is the best place to live, man. I live in Canada and I know that. And I mean, like, this is like the third or fourth best place to live. So like, I'm not complaining. I'm not trying to move to America, but if you're living in like one of the worst places to live, yeah, you're going to go to America and you're going to do everything you need, including lie, by the way. These people might be lying. So what? They need to get there. They have a real serious need. It's important that we treat everybody like a human being, not just the ones we like. Okay? Not just the ones who have the same skin color as us or who are born on a different side of that invisible line that the governments just kind of make up, right? It's important. We're all human beings. We all deserve love, effort, respect, and a place to live and to try to be happy for the freedom and the pursuit of justice. I mean, America was the immigrant country. And then they're like, oh, we're too full. Close it. Again, Just ridiculous. There's probably plenty of space to put these people in Canada, but there's no unilateral effort to do it. There's no, hey, let's invest in global economies. Hey, I mean, globalism, oh no. Yeah, how about if all the countries work together on boosting each other's economies instead of all working independently to boost their own economies? Hey, guess what? All the economies would get boosted. It's like with the whole old media thing. Like, it's like, well, we can't have this commentator on the show because he's the competition, and we don't want there's only so many eyeballs. It's like, no, there's more of a need, and also if you are always pumping each other up, it's better. It's just better. The countries, the way that they act, the way that they portray themselves is horrible. Greece recovers a Picasso Mondrian painting stolen from gallery in 2012. First off, the one on the right looks a lot nicer than the one on the left. Just aesthetically. Come on. Look, I don't want to say this. I don't want to poop on Picasso because I don't understand it. There's probably elements of composition that Picasso's using here that I just don't understand. In terms of using line and composition and stuff, but in terms of aesthetics, the one on the right's 5,000 times better. Abstract art kind of, it's not that it does nothing for me. I think it can be aesthetically pleasing, but I don't think this is very aesthetically pleasing at all. But you know what's funny? Because this painting was stolen, and because it's a Picasso, now the value is going to shoot up like crazy. That's what happened with the Mona Lisa. The Mona Lisa is only famous because it was stolen. It's not a particularly good piece that Michelangelo did. It's not the most artistically complex piece. Spinelli, I know you want on my lap, but you cannot be on my lap. I've decided you are not the news kitty, all right? You're not news kitty. You're game kitty, all right? All right? And even then, I don't let her sit on my lap for games. It's annoying. All right, so Greek police have recovered a work of art by Pablo Picasso and another one by Dutch painter Piet Mondrian. So this one's Picasso and this is Mondrian. Mondrian's a better artist in my opinion, but everyone's going to disagree because this guy's famous. I feel like he's only famous because his art's weird. Honestly, what's wrong with that? Thieves broke into the gallery and snatched Picasso's 1939 painting, Woman's Head, donated by the artist in 1949, and Mondrian's Mill, dated in 1905. To mislead the guard, the thieves had activated the gallery's alarm system several times before breaking into the building early in the early morning. The guard turned off the alarm only to later spot one of the thieves through the motion detector. Police on Monday found two artworks hidden at a gorge in the wider Athens area and arrested a Greek man, said a police official on condition of anonymity. Greek authorities are due to make official statements on the case on Tuesday. I wonder if there's some sort of secret cabal of people who own the art. I mean, if it's at a museum, they're not going to sell it, so my theory goes right out the window. Right into the bin, mate. Right into the bin. Okay, man jumped from a moving plane in LA after crystal meth bender. Who doesn't love this kind of story? Let's dive right in. A passenger who tried to break into a plane cockpit last week had recently been under the influence of methamphetamine before he jumped from the moving plane in Los Angeles, authorities said. Luis Antonio Victoria Dominguez of La Paz, I guess, Mexico, broke his leg on Friday when he opened the plane's emergency exit and jumped to the tarmac at Los Angeles International Airport, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office in Los Angeles. He underwent surgery and is expected to appear in federal court this week on a charge of interference with a flight crew, which could bring 20 years in prison if he is convicted. A criminal complaint released on Monday gave new details about the incident and Victoria Dominguez's life in the days prior. The 33-year-old arrived in Los Angeles on Tuesday from Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. The complaint says his plan was to get to Salt Lake City, but he did not have a connecting flight. He spent the night at a hotel in downtown Los Angeles after drinking several beers and buying a lot of crystal meth for $20, he told FBI. The next day, he continued to smoke the crystal meth and decided to fly to Utah instead of taking a bus, the complaint says. He smoked more of the drug before heading to the airport Thursday, but ultimately missed his flight and wandered the streets through the night. On Friday, he missed a second flight, but was rescheduled to board United Airlines Flight 5365, operated by SkyWest Airlines, to Salt Lake City. Victoria Dominguez took his seat and began to doze as he was coming down from all the drugs he had used the last couple of days, the complaint said. The passenger sitting next to Victoria Dominguez told authorities that he kept looking around and fidgeting. He asked her where she was going, and she said it was not his business. She said he then whispered to her that he needed to get off the plane and was going to jump out. "I'm serious," he said. Victoria Dominguez, however, told the FBI that he heard other passengers laugh and say that they were going to a different destination, the complaint says. He panicked. He sprinted toward a flight attendant at the front of the plane around 7 p.m. and said he wasn't feeling well and needed to get off the flight. The flight attendant said the plane was about to take off and they began to struggle, the complaint says. He pounded on the locked cockpit door and tried to open it as the flight attendant prayed the pilots, who were confused by the banging, would not open the door, according to the document. Victoria Dominguez wrenched open the emergency exit door and the emergency slide deployed, according to the complaint, as the flight attendant called pilots to stop the plane. He told the FBI that his panic attack potentially gave him the strength to open the door of the aircraft, which had not been moving before, began to roll as Victoria Dominguez struggled with a passenger who was trying to restrain him. Victoria Dominguez got away and jumped from the aircraft, missing the emergency slide and landing on the tarmac, breaking his right leg. He was trying to crawl away from the plane when he was apprehended. Wow. That is absolutely crazy. I would love to see this, but we can't play videos on here. I wish I could. The internet doesn't like it. The internet hates it. The internet hates videos. I'm too bright in the video. That's so weird. It's like when I adjust it in Logitech options, it doesn't change. All right. But that's okay. We'll do it live. That's you know what Bill said. New Hampshire boy shooting chipmunk strikes uncle in freak accident, police says. Why is the headline not local idiot lets child shoot gun and gets shot for his troubles? Seriously. In Canada, that is unheard of, okay? Like, my fiance, I mean, her family is more like hunters or whatever, so they're more likely, they're way more likely to have somebody like do that. And she didn't shoot a shotgun until she was like, I don't know, like 15, 16, something like that. So like, she wasn't shooting squirrels with a BB gun. Oh my God. And it was chipmunks. I'm sorry. And chipmunks are funnier. An 8-year-old boy accidentally shot his uncle in the head while they were shooting chipmunks in New Hampshire, according to local reports, and nobody felt bad. The man's injuries were not life-threatening, but oh my God, that'd be so scary. Milton Police Chief Richard Krause told local newspaper Foster's Daily Democrat that it was truly a freak accident. It's not against the law for anyone to teach a child how to shoot and then take them hunting, even at 8 years old, he told the newspaper. Hey, it's not against the law, but it really should be. Maybe there's like a minimum age or something, like, hey, 14. That's old to even touch a gun, 14. Something like that. Like, have some sort of regulation in place. I mean, I know some adults are really good and some adults are really smart and some kids are really smart, but I wouldn't let somebody who hadn't had a fully developed prefrontal cortex touch shit. Like, come on. What are you thinking? That person can't problem solve effectively. They're not thinking of all the variables going involved. Like, this is horrible. Krause noted that some kids learn how to shoot a lot younger than that. Police said the bullet shot by the 8-year-old ricocheted after killing a chipmunk and hit the man in the head. I mean, it was just a ricochet. I was wondering how he shot the man, and then I was like, how do you accidentally shoot a guy in the head? Like, stormtroopers can't even do that intentionally. It's nuts. But yeah, I think it's just, again, Fox News is a more right-leaning thing. And by the way, I don't think right just means bad. It just seems like, hey, maybe, just maybe, there should be regulation around this. And they're painting it in a way that's like, no. Like, some kids learn way younger and they're totally safe. Yeah, but the reason we have these regulations is not for like 90% of the time. The reasons we have these rules and these laws is for the 10% of the time it goes freakishly wrong. And you scar that child for life, potentially kill the child, and potentially kill whatever adult you're working with. Have some freaking sense, the United States of America. And stop being so damn attached to your guns. Who gives a shit? Oh my God. Such children. Sorry, any United States people listening, if you're obsessed with your guns, you're a child. Who cares? Who cares? Seriously. And you know what? Maybe that's a bad example because, hey, my country controls us a lot. They have a lot of the control. We gave a lot of the control to them. And during the COVID pandemic, it was clear that that trust was very misplaced and that things aren't going too well over here. That's good, but at least little children don't get shot with guns all the time over here. At least we don't have massive amounts of school shooting. At least we can walk through Toronto and probably not get shot. I mean, we probably will get hit by a truck, but you can't illegalize truck because people need those to go to work, man. All right, Fashion Nova's CEO's home was site of an armed robbery that left one person dead and four... You know what? Who gives a fuck about that? Seriously. Derek Chauvin closing in on plea deal with federal prosecutors. I hope these federal prosecutors really raked him over the coals. But I have a hard time believing that they did. The federal prosecutors in the United States make me upset sometimes. This could include a public explanation of the George Floyd arrest. Oh, what? Let's see what Mr. Shapiro's doing. Let's go. Oh, okay. I guess we can't see what Mr. Shapiro's doing. Never mind. I guess, us plebs can't, is this, we're reading the Daily Wire. This is his news program. This is, by the way, so the editor of this newspaper is Ben Shapiro, a man I don't fully trust, honestly. I would have to really look into what his points are, and I would really have to look in, but this guy gives me a real bad vibe. I've been watching him for years. And again, if I've been watching him for years, why don't I have an opinion? Well, the only time I ever see him is when other people are crapping on him. So, of course, he's going to look bad in my eyes. But even when I go to him on his own or when I listen to him on the Joe Rogan Experience, there's something there that really annoys the hell out of me. All right. So, former Minneapolis, Minnesota police officer Derek Chauvin, who was just sentenced to 22 years for the murder of George Floyd, is closing in on a plea deal with federal prosecutors. A deal which could include a public explanation of what happened during Floyd's arrest last year. The Department of Justice filed charges against Chauvin and the three other officers, Thomas Lane, J. Alexander Kung, and To Thao, on the scene during Floyd's arrest back in early May. Chauvin is charged with using excessive force and violating Floyd's civil rights during the Floyd's arrest. Lane, Kung, and Thao are charged with failing to intervene to stop a federal crime in progress, as well as failing to provide medical care to the dying Floyd. A second federal indictment also charges Chauvin with the depiction of a civil rights under color of... I'm going to read that again. I messed that up. A second federal indictment also charges Chauvin with deprivation of civil rights under color of law for a 2017 incident involving a 14-year-old boy whom Chauvin allegedly struck in the head with a flashlight and pinned to the ground with a knee on his neck and back during the arrest, according to CBS News. Chauvin was arrested last week to 22.5 years in prison on murder. That is nothing! We covered a story at the beginning of this of a pedophile who got 105 years. And this police officer uses his power to just kill a man in the street who's begging for his mother, and he gets 22 years. Maybe there's more time coming. There better be more time coming, because he deserves a lot longer than that. He should never be in the public light, because you know what? Honestly, even when he gets out of prison, he's going to be public enemy number one. There's nothing that guy can do to redeem himself. There's nothing. Just like any cop who does that with their position. That's why it's such a hard position to have. And I don't hate cops. I mean, I've had like angry position towards cops in my life, but knowing people in law enforcement and having family in law enforcement has given me a deeper perspective on it. It's a really hard job, and a lot of the people who work as cops hate their lives. The reason why they hate their lives, it's a really tough job to do. It's kind of impossible to expect anyone to do it for a prolonged time without suffering from severe mental issues. Like, even just people who like are in positions where they're like probation officers and stuff. Again, they're not cops. They're in law enforcement though, and they have to hear and see stories that we could never imagine. Seriously, like my brother was talking about it, and he was telling me a story, and I actually had to get him to stop telling me the story because it upset me too much. And he's like, yeah, that's what they go through all the time. All the time. So their idea towards us and violence are completely skewed. They are in a position of extreme power, and I really do think that having police monitor police is really dangerous, because I really think you need a human being that hasn't had their sense of violence and their sense of dignity and their sense of justice skewed like that. There should be somebody who actually has more of a civilian philosophy monitoring the police foundation to make sure that things are good for the civilians, because ultimately the reason the police exist in the first place is to protect us and keep us safe. I don't think Derek Chauvin was keeping anybody safe. Definitely wasn't keeping himself safe, because he's going to get 22 years, and I imagine he'll have to spend every second of that in a cell by himself, because I couldn't imagine. Honestly, like, I would imagine that when he even goes to prison in the first place, that whole place is going to riot. It's going to shake. It's going to be nuts. I really hope he doesn't get put in a good jail. He doesn't deserve one. Seriously. I mean, you could say he might deserve one because of his time on the police force, but everything that he worked for, everything that he was, totally gone. I mean, and it was probably gone when he hit the kid with the flashlight, right? Like, he was already a dirty cop. And the worst part about it is he was infecting all of the other cops on that thing. The saying is, one bad apple, don't let one bad apple spoil the bunch. And people are saying, oh, this is just a few bad apples. But what do they say? All of the other apples are fucking complicit in it. They're complicit. Those two other officers are complicit. They didn't have the nuts to just stand up and say, hey, you're killing them. Get off. What are you doing? We're human beings. What are you doing? It's like they forget. It's like we become machines for these jobs that we do. It's like we can't take a step back and just think of the humanity of what you're doing. It's disgusting. But of course, cold take. Very cold take. Ice cold take. But I still have it. It's important to say. It's disgusting. He deserves way more time than that. And I really do think he should have somebody step on his neck. I really think that would be justice, but I guess it's cruel and unusual, so you can't do it. It's cruel and unusual punishment, right? Like, if they were just like, okay, well, we're going to do the exact same thing to you for the exact same amount of time with somebody who doesn't like you, because that was the situation you were in, right? And then we're going to have two people, just to make sure the situation is completely fair, we're going to have two people who really like that guy and also kind of don't like you. Would that be fair? Would that be justice? Because we're being told that's what justice is. It's ridiculous. I'm going to the next story because I'm too salty for this one. Honestly, we're almost done the stories of the day, though. So that's good. And we got some interesting ones because we're talking about Britney Spears right now, but I actually am looking to make a video, more of a comprehensive video on Britney Spears' conservatorship and conservatorships in general. But if I'm going to do that, I want to work with my sister on it. She is you know, she loved Britney Spears growing up because like everyone in my generation did. I mean, like who doesn't love Toxic? That's an amazing song. Actually, Britney Spears' Toxic is part of the reason I love broadcasting in the first place. When she does that like crazy electronic, like voice altering thing, it made me think about microphones and broadcasting and changing things and skewing things. And like, I always thought that was one of the coolest things ever. We'll get into the story. There's a lot of stuff with Britney Spears. I can't explain it all, but if you are paying attention to this, I thought this story was interesting. So Britney Spears' sister, Jamie Lynn Spears of Zoe 101, I believe. I watched Zoe 101 growing up. Jamie Lynn, if you're watching, I'm giving you a shout out. Says she's only concerned with stars' happiness in emotional video. I wish I could watch the emotional video. Maybe we could, but I'm not going to. I don't care if she wants to run away to a rainforest and have a zillion babies in the middle of nowhere, she said in the video message. I have nothing to gain or lose either way. Jamie, who cares about you? Why don't you care about your freaking sister? Sorry. I have nothing to gain or lose either way. Who cares? I don't care. This is about somebody who is who's mentally ill. Again, she probably wasn't mentally ill when she initially got into the game. But because she's existing as a celebrity with a government that literally will make it illegal for you to go stalk somebody, right? Like, you can't follow somebody around, track all their movements. They can do a legal lawsuit against you, and that's wrong. But if you have a camera and that person is famous, if they've done something of note to make them known enough in the world where people actually want to buy their photographs, well, that's legal. Why? That makes no sense. Because there's a financial incentive, it's legal? Isn't that kind of saying that the American political system, the people who make the laws, the people who make the legislator, are literally care more about the bottom line of how much people can make and the success of the paparazzi, who, by the way, yes, they're photographers, so yes, they are artists, but their art is repugnant. I have no other word. Repugnant. It's horrible. You can't make, if you honestly, like, seriously, like, everyone should just do something you can't say on Twitch. So days after Britney Spears had made an emotional, I want to make sure that I'm lined up okay. I wish I could just like turn down my webcam on the fly, but I don't think that's how it works though. In the future, I will turn down my light. It makes me upset. It makes me upset that I'm not a good broadcast view to you. I look like a ghost on the screen. And there's no way for me to turn down the brightness without closing down the stream and making an ass of myself. So let's just keep going. All right. Days after Britney Spears made an emotional plea to a Los Angeles judge. Her name was Betty, I believe. I think Judge Betty Brown. To terminate her conservatorship, her younger sister, Jamie Lynn, age 30, is breaking her silence, saying that she wants nothing but happiness for her sister and that she always has and always will support Britney. I just want to take a second to address a few things, Jamie Lynn said in the video message shared Monday to her Instagram stories. The only reason I hadn't before is because I felt like until my sister was able to speak for herself and say what she felt she needed to say publicly, that it wasn't my place and it wasn't the right thing to do. But now that she's very clearly spoken and said what she needed to say, I feel like I can follow her lead and say what I feel I need to say. Since the day I was born, I've only loved and adored and supported my sister. I mean, this is my freaking big sister before any of this BS. I don't care if she wants to run away to a rainforest and have a zillion babies in the middle of nowhere, or if she comes back and dominate the world the way she has done so many times before, because I have nothing to gain or lose either way, she said. The situation does not affect me either way because I'm only her sister who is concerned with her happiness. Jamie Lynn continued by saying, she made a very conscious choice to only participate in Britney Spears' life as a sister, and that she has done her own thing ever since she was a child. I paid my freaking bill since I was 10 years old. Not that I owe the public anything, because my sister knows I love and support her, and I'm not my family. I'm my own person, and I'm speaking for myself. The Zoe 101 star says she's very proud of Britney for speaking up, and she has always supported her happiness. Maybe I didn't support the way the public would like me to with a hashtag on a public platform, but I can assure you that I support my sister long before there was a hashtag, and I'll support her long after, she said. Jamie Lynn and Britney Spears are victims of parents who are profiting off of their children for entertainment value. It's just like the paparazzis. It's disgusting. It's a business practice that shouldn't take place. And I know that sucks, because it's like, well, how are you going to have kids shows? You can have kids shows with adult entertainers. It's fine. Putting kids in these situations messes them up almost every time. I mean, we saw this with Drake Bell. I mean, it's really destructive to kids. So either these parents only care about the money, or they care about their kid being famous or having something a little better than them. It should be illegal. Against the law. You shouldn't be able to destroy these kids' lives. Seriously. And I know there's probably actresses out there like Raven Simone and like all these people who didn't have as bad of an experience growing up on these shows. But I would say even Raven Simone, I mean, like, she went through hell on her show, That's So Raven, which, by the way, shout out to Raven Simone. I watched that show a lot growing up. I thought it was great. Loved Corey, loved you, loved your friends, loved everything about it. It was great. But, like, when she was running that show, she got a ton of feedback from the producers saying, like, you need to be thinner, like, you need to be smaller. And she gave them pushback. I mean, like, that's who she is. And that's part of why we love her. I mean, it's not a fat acceptance thing. Like, fat acceptance is a horrible movement because, again, we should be just encouraging people to be happy and to not have eating disorders. I think that that's, like, the main thing. Like, I think that if you have an eating disorder, either way, you should work independently. It shouldn't be anybody else's concern unless, again, you're so far over the line that your family has to come in and intervene. But at the end of the day, that should be your family. Your audience has no place telling you you have an eating disorder. Honestly, no place. Even if you're concerned. It's their family's job. And if nobody can reach out to these people and nobody wants to, maybe you can. But most people with eating disorders have been talked to many times by their family. And it's usually a big thing. And you know what? When you see Raven on That's So Raven and like how heavy she was, it was clear she didn't have an eating disorder or a problem with food. So what's the issue? Why are you trying to make these young actresses and actors sexy? It's gross. It's really gross. It's like, well, the other little kids have to be attracted to you. It's like, why? Why can't they just be funny or good in a different way? Why do you need to try to appeal to beauty? Sometimes the most beautiful people are the ugliest people. If you're working in an art school and you're watching a live painting class, the artists themselves, and I went to art school for a year and then dropped out. That was the first time I dropped out of a school. I did finish radio broadcasting, by the way. I finished it. I did it. But the art kids will even tell you, like, fat people are way, way more fun to draw. Just in general, because, again, like, they've got more curves. Like, it's more interesting. Again, if you have a different look, it's better. Like, you know, like a very classic. Anyway, I was just kind of talking about fame and Britney Spears, and I got lost. How do I feel about Zoe's comments? Again, like, I really, again, like, it doesn't affect me either way. And also the fact that, like, she's just like, well, I've been making my own money, so it doesn't really matter to me. It's like, this is your sister. It kind of goes, like, above that. Like, it should matter if she moves to a rainforest and has a zillion babies, because that wouldn't be good for her, and that wouldn't be good for her zillion babies. Like, you should care. On a personal level, I feel, not a professional level. All right, this one I was interested in just because I love Lil Nas X. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to hate him, not because he was like black or gay or anything. It's just because he was like a pop star, basically. And my fiance loves Lil Nas X. She even has like a Lil Nas X t-shirt and stuff. And she showed me his video. Like, I don't like his like video stuff. Actually, you know what? Holiday was a really good video. I really like that one. I don't really like Montero as much. I just think that the CGI personally is like, my problem is I'm not used to seeing CGI like that, where it's like almost like middle range of budget, where it's like, it's not great, but it's more representative. I just thought visually it looked kind of, it's not what I would do for that. And again, like, I'm not even like, I don't even want to comment on like, well, I don't even want to say that it's not like the pink and like the crazy colors and the flamboyantness and the femininity. That's not what I had a problem with. It was more like, I didn't like the way that the devil was, but like, or not the devil, the snake. I didn't really like so much the way he was portrayed. I don't know. There's a lot artistically that I think he could grow from. But again, he's very young, and I'm sure he'll improve on the next video. So I'm pretty confident. But anyway, that's my take on Lil Nas X. Let's freaking listen to this. Lil Nas X reveals how nervous he was before BET Awards performance. If you guys don't know, the BET, I believe, is the Black Entertainment Awards. Black Entertainment Television Awards. Sorry. I was trembling. Lil Nas X delivered a brave, unapologetic, and electrifying performance at the BET Awards on Sunday, ending his set by locking lips with a male dancer before and during the show. The rapper says he was a bundle of nerves. It took a lot of time to mentally prepare for this performance, Nas tweeted Monday. While on stage, I was trembling knowing that I was performing something like that in front of my straight peers. Even during the performance, I was having a hard time calming my nerves. Thank you guys for the love. After a commenter asked why he went through it despite his fears, Nas responded, "If you don't push yourself outside your comfort zone, you'll never grow." But just like this, his racy music video for Montero, some complained that Nas's performance was inappropriate in its messaging and visuals. That's not my problem. Stop letting your kids watch the BET Awards. All right. Put on Coco Melon. Nas tweeted in response to one critic referencing a popular YouTube channel for children's programming. All right, so this is just like an entertainment thing, but I just wanted to, talk about Lil Nas X for a few seconds. So I do love that artist. How do I feel about him kissing a dancer? Well, I mean, I have to say it's gross when Madonna and Britney Spears do it, and I think it's gross when he does it. I just leave the dancers alone. They're doing their job, man. Like, they're not. Like, the thing I don't like about it is that, like, did he ask the dancer? Was the dancer involved in it in the start, or, like, not? Like, it's not very clear. If the dancer was involved in it and he said, hey, I'm going to kiss you at this part and, like, we're going to shock the world, that's one thing. But if he just did it to a guy like he, like, knew was gay or who knows? Like, it's hard with a situation like that because anything that you do in a show like that must be planned to the T. So I have a hard time imagining that it wasn't planned. But yeah. You know what? I argued with myself and I came out the victor. All right, this freaking video is like an hour and 3 minutes long already. We need to get to the end of our stories and we're almost there. All right. Freaky new weight loss tool works by locking mouth almost completely shut. Now, if we're looking at this little image here, and if you have me on another browser, freaking come check this one out, because this is crazy. It's like a Victorian metal thing that like it latches onto two teeth, and jeez. Honestly, just looking at this is like freaking me out a little bit. Just like imagining it being on my freaking teeth. It is scary. It is scary. So medical professionals. These are professionals, guys. They're shutting your jaw for weight loss. I mean, we'll see. I mean, like, it seems like it was developed for, like, if you have, like, your jaw locked or something, and it's good to have your jaw locked in certain situations, especially if you're healing from, like, a broken jaw or something, but, like, come on. Medical professionals have developed a weight loss tool that takes the concept of forced dieting to new extremes. called Dental Slim Control. The device itself attaches inside the mouth and prevents the wearer from opening their jaws for more than 2 millimeters wide for as long as it's worn. The whole idea behind the device is essentially to force users into abstaining from eating during the designated periods and will only allow liquids to pass into the mouth, basically ensuring the wearers stick to any sort of liquid diet they may have already planned to adopt. Whoever made this device, whoever invented this device, medical professional or no, you should have your medical license taken away. Seriously. Any medical professional, what is this? This is just a way to enable eating disorders. Seriously. In my opinion, I mean, like, I know people go on liquid diets for a lot of different reasons, but, like, it does seem like one of the craziest crash diets, and this just seems like a way for people to enable that. Although I can't really imagine somebody who's that focused on their looks constantly wearing a big metal thing jutting out of your face, but it's a very I don't even really understand the applications for this. Maybe if you have like a real eating disorder, maybe if you're morbidly obese and you honestly cannot stop the urge, and the only way for you to actually lose enough weight for you to get your gastric bypass surgeries to go on a liquid diet for a few months, and the whole time you're at risk of death because of just how massive you are, maybe then I could understand it. But as it is right now, this is gross. This is really gross, and this is very upsetting. Oh my God, I hate the world. I hate the world. All right. Now this one I'm going to put at the end, not because I don't care about it, but because I do think it'll be a good story to end off on. Just because it's kind of like, it's a big deal. People care about pride. People care about the police, you know. I wonder. I'm looking at my camera. We're switching overlays for like 2 seconds. 2 seconds. Opening. I just want to make sure I don't look entirely like a ghost. Yeah, not entirely. It's not. Yeah, but when I go to this window, it's a lot brighter. I wonder if it's like the brightness on my screen itself. But even so, it shouldn't be that bright. Sorry, guys. I apologize for my unprofessional attitude and how my streams don't look as good as they should. You know, I should have done that right at the start, and it is a way for me to have kind of diffuse lighting, which is cool. But yeah, we're going to get right back into this freaking stream. Let's go. Let's go. And, you know, I might stream Minecraft after this. Or RimWorld. I would like to maybe start streaming RimWorld because I love that game more than anything. And now that I haven't played it on my new computer yet, so I'm kind of excited to be able to play it with a computer that runs it a little bit better. Even though, like, I think that was kind of a game that, like, I didn't really see the effects so much of what was going on my old computer. But, like, you know what? I had a big enough colony, it would wear out. But we're doing the news right now, so let's get into this. Juul to pay $40 million in North Carolina teen vaping suit settlement. So, electronic cigarette giant Juul Labs Inc. will pay $40 million to North Carolina and take more action to prevent underage use and sales, according to a landmark legal settlement announced Monday after years of accusations that the company had fueled an explosion in teen vaping. A state judge accepted the first of its kind agreement with a state. North Carolina Attorney General Josh Stein had sued Juul, accusing it of employing unfair and deceptive practices that target young people to its vaping products which deliver addictive nicotine. The lawsuit had been scheduled for trial next month. As part of the agreement, Juul will not advertise to anyone under 21 in North Carolina, including through social media, and will limit sales of the amounts of Juul products online to any state residents. It will also sell its products only behind counters at retailers that have ID scanners to ensure customers are of age. Teen use of e-cigarettes skyrocketed more than 70% after Juul's launch in 2015, leading the U.S. and Food and Drug Administration to declare an epidemic of underage vaping among teenagers. Health experts said the increased. Okay, wait a second. Unprecedented. So health experts said the unprecedented increased risk hooking a generation of young people on nicotine, an addictive chemical that is harmful for the developing brain. Unprecedented. You know, when my dad was a kid, he smoked cigarettes. It was his generation. And by the way, he wasn't like a weird kid. A lot of kids back in the day smoked cigarettes. It was common. The tobacco industry literally marketed their products towards kids. Joe Camel from Camel Cigarettes. He was a character invented to hook kids on Camel cigarettes. This was a huge thing for a long time. There is clearly precedent for kids using these drugs if they can get their hands on them. Now, there was a generation where kids could get their hands on them. My dad's generation. Then my dad raised me, and I couldn't get my hands on them. In school, I mean, when I was in like elementary and high school, vaping was not really a thing yet. It was becoming a thing in certain circumstances, but like when I was going through high school, there were people vaping, but it was like people who were kind of like weird adults trying to quit smoking, or, you know, people who just liked it, or liked Trevor Moore of Whitest Kids You Know. He was into vaping way back, and he like messing with the coils and stuff, and like that's pretty like important. But like when I was in school, there was a smokers court. There wasn't a ton of people out, like there wasn't like a crazy amount of the population of the school out there, but there were places for kids to smoke in high school. But it was, in general, I would say, looked down upon by most of the other kids, because we all have this view on cigarettes, I think, especially when you're growing up, and especially when literally every after-school special is like, don't smoke, it's bad for you, and it doesn't make you look cool at all. It does make you look cool at a severe price, all right? Smoking does make you look cool, but you know what doesn't make you look cool? Leukemia. Think about that shit. So yeah, I find it a little irritating that the article says unprecedented. It is totally precedented. If kids can get access to these things, it's totally normal. And when I talk to kids who are in school now, and I ask them about the e-cigarette issue, because like it's something I'm interested in, they say, yeah, they're everywhere. Like everyone, like a ton of people just have them in their like pencil cases and stuff, and they just, when they can get a quick fucking vape, they can. And they'll like do it in class and stuff behind the teacher's back, and they think they're cool. And I mean, like, I'm sure the teacher doesn't really care that much. Or I mean, the teacher should care, but like with how many kids they have to go through, I'm sure they don't really care. Like that's the harmful thing about teachers. Like teachers, like you think they care about you, but because of their job, where you'd think that they would care about you, but because of their job, it's almost like police officers. It's the exact opposite. They do not care about you. If they cared about each and every one of you, they couldn't do their job. They would be an emotional wreck by the end of the day if they cared about each and every kid and took everything personally. Juul sparked and spread a disease, the disease of nicotine. Sparked and spread a disease. Don't you think that maybe cigarettes might have sparked that, and Juul was just kind of capitalizing on it, right? They did it to teenagers across North Carolina and this country simply to make money. That's what all these companies are for. They're just trying to get the resources. Yeah, that's what companies do. That's what their financial incentive is. And you could blame them. But at the end of the day, if you don't have proper legislation to protect your people, you need to make that legislation, right? You need to sue these people and set the precedences so that your people can be safe. At the end of the day, I lay this at the feet, not of the marketers for Juul, but of the American government itself. They have let harmful capitalists, not even just capitalists, harmful business people with harmful products market their products to people. And it's horrible. Like, sorry, they target them to like underage people, and they target them to the most vulnerable, and they get these people and they hook them for life. And what's funny is, like, say if you're addicted to alcohol, right? If like that is your thing, they will, like, the law enforcement they'll put out speed traps to catch people who are drunk driving or driving stoned, but they don't put out actually good, publicly funded drug treatment programs. They're like, I'm sure they're available, but they should be available to literally everybody. Every human being I have ever known has struggled with at least some sort of substance abuse issue. It seems like a epidemic that is sweeping us, but I think it's always been among us ever since we've been able to, properly distill alcohol back in the Industrial Revolution, right? Like, once we were able to do that, we got spirits and things kind of went crazy. And when the settlers went across the old pond, they came and they found the Aboriginal or Indian people, depending on how you want to call them. Indian people, but the reason I say Indian is because that's what the Indian people call themselves. So it's just what they do. It's what they call themselves because that's what we called them for so long, and now that's just what they think they are. And now we're calling them Aboriginal, and they're like, "You're making us change our name again?" At first we didn't classify ourselves at all, and then we had to classify ourselves into something different, and now we have to classify ourselves into something that, makes woke people feel better. So they did it to teenagers across North Carolina and this country simply to make money, Stein, a Democrat, said after a big court hearing. Today's court order will go a long way towards ensuring that their e-cigarette products is not in kids' hands, its chemical vapor is out of their lungs, and the nicotine does not poison or addict their brains. Juul, which is partially owned by Altria Group Inc., has seen sales fall after already halting all advertising and social media promotion and pulling most of its flavors except for menthol. This settlement is consistent with our ongoing effort to reset our company and its relationship with our stakeholders as we continue to combat underage usage and advance the opportunity for harm reduction for adult smokers. Juul said in a statement after the court hearing. Sorry, I was paying attention to the quote. I was listening to the quote. We seek to continue to earn trust through action. I mean, that's fair. I think Juul probably isn't a super evil company. I don't think when they were designing those little Juuls, they were like, yeah, it fits right into a little kid's hand. It'll be perfect for a kid. I just think that it is a product because it is a vape. It is a small vape, and it has the effects that the adults want, but there's none of the inconvenience, there's none of the difficulty. It's very easy, and kids love those products. Kids love it when it's just easy and you can just put it on for them. Kids love YouTube because they can just press a video and they never have to stop watching YouTube because there will always be another video coming. I don't want to talk about this anymore. We're done with this story. Next story. Let's go. All right, this is our last story of the day, and you could say it's debatably one of the most important, or at least one of the most contentious. We have two groups that are contentious in the news. We have the police, and we have the LGBT movement, and they're clashing, so let's see how they're clashing. All right, police pepper sprayed people who were celebrating Pride on Sunday. By the way, just want to say, I mean, I guess you can't say protesting Pride, but Pride is not a celebration of gayness. The history of the Pride movement is a protest. It is a protest. It is about out of the bars and into the streets, right? We don't have to hang out in the dingy bars anymore. We don't have to. We are going to let our freak flag fly, and this is what we're gonna do. And you can't stop us all. Because there's so many of us that you never would have imagined, right? And, it's a good opportunity for people to, actually see gay people as they want to be. Not the person they're presenting just to make you feel better. And I really respect that. I respect it as a protest, and I respect it. I really do think that there should be, during Pride Month, I think that there should be protests. And I also think there should be at least one big celebration, maybe a day dedicated to it, dedicated to the celebration of how far they've come and how far that's gone. But you still need to have the protest because, in Canada, I hear a lot of people be like, well, nobody hates gay people here in Canada. I mean, like, that is kind of true, sort of. I mean, if you hear what I hear behind closed doors, sometimes you'd be surprised. But these protests still need to happen. I mean, if you think about what's going on in, like, the deep south, do you really think those kids will feel good about being gay? I mean, like, many parents will say, hey, I'd rather you be a serial killer than a gay. I'd rather you kill another person, actually a group of other people, than just be gay. Just love who you want and be who you want and just be happy. Is it because gay people can't procreate like in the same way that everybody else procreates? They find other ways to do it. So, yeah. A spokesperson for the New York Police Department didn't comment on their use of pepper spray, but told NBC News that police made a total of 8 arrests in and near Washington Square Park. 4 people were issued summonses for disorderly conduct, while the other charges included resisting arrest, obstruction, administration, and criminal possession of a weapon. An NYPD spokesperson told Forbes that those arrested allegedly attempted to pass through a police barricade, bit an officer, and slapped an officer's hand. Oh no! Slapped an officer's hand? Really? Slapped an officer's hand. Wow. That's reasonable. Hey, that's de-escalating the situation. What? You slap my hand, pepper spray you in the face. Like, that's reasonable. That's really de-escalating. But I mean, these police officers are probably legitimately scared because these people really don't like them. And they will probably try to find any sort of excuse to impose violence against them. It's crazy. Witnesses say the encounter between police and marchers happened Sunday evening around 7 p.m. Attendees of the Queer Liberation March, which took place earlier, were congregating in Washington Square Park. Some people were standing outside of a barricade police had placed around the Square Park's Washington Arch, which, by the way, when I went to New York City, I saw and was really cool. Sorry, that's all I have to add. Said Jay Walker, one of the co-founders of Reclaim Pride, which hosts the march. Walker said the NYPD detail assigned to the march behaved appropriately and respected the group's wishes for officers to stay away from the marchers until the event ended in the park. Reclaim Pride advocates for the abolition of law enforcement. What? Reclaim Pride advocates for the abolition of law enforcement. But, like, what do we do? Advocates for abolition of law enforcement so that they can build a new thing. No, nothing. They just want to destroy it so that we don't get police anymore. So that, like, hey, my wife got stabbed and I want to call the police, but because you guys felt that they were a little too rough, we got rid of them entirely, so now I have nobody to call. What do I do? What do you say I do? Do I pay a private security force to do that? What if I don't have the money? What if I'm poor? So because I'm poor and can't afford a private security force to just go do justice on my behalf because the police are gone, I don't get justice? Is that what you're saying? I don't know. If you're not going to suggest something different, I think it's gross to say, well, we should abolish this. It's like, well, maybe we should. Or maybe what it is now needs to evolve and transform because it currently doesn't meet the needs of the populace post-internet, post-COVID, post-everything. We're tired of this. We're tired of the treatment. We're tired of the way everybody's treated. The problem arose hours after the completion of the march at around 7 o'clock yesterday when a police officer who was penned in at the Washington Square Arch to protest the arch from graffiti apparently did a wide arc of a very, very strong aerosol pepper spray that had a long reach in response to a few people sort of heckling the officers at the bar. Hey, that actually really annoys me. That really annoys me. He was trying to protect the Washington Square Arch, and he pepper sprayed them to protect the arch. This is like something that really matters to people in New York City. It matters to a lot of people. It matters to me. I went to go see it. I wanted to see it. So to think that a bunch of degenerates, no, they're not even degenerates. To think that a bunch of people are just going to, we're going to spray paint this because our message is more important than the history of this monument or all the people who've come to see this monument. My message is more important. I'm glad if that's why they got pepper sprayed, I'm glad they got pepper sprayed. Multiple people were injured by the pepper spray, but again, it's not. It's not. I thought this was Ben Shapiro's news rag, but it's not. It's NBC, which I don't have any reason to super distrust, but we'll see. It seems like a pretty reasonable article. The problem arose hours after the completion of the march at around 7 o'clock yesterday when a police officer who was penned in, I already read this. I need to get good. I wish I had a way I could just highlight the text I've already read. That'd be cool. But I don't have that functionality, not in this world. Multiple people were injured by the pepper spray, he said, so he and the other marshals for the Queer Liberation March called in medics. Another witness, Chelsea Manning, said that she saw officers use pepper spray and also witnessed medics treating at least 3 people who were sprayed in the face and eyes. If you just put the aerosol out into the air, the wind does most of it. You don't have to spray it in their faces directly. Seriously. They would know that because in order to be a cop or work in law enforcement on any level, you have to get sprayed with pepper spray. But you don't get sprayed in the face. They just let the pepper spray spray out. I'm sure they don't get sprayed in the face. They probably should though, just so they know how horrible it is. Seriously, capsaicin straight to the eye. If you're doing this to other people, if you think this is should be part of your thing, I also think that maybe police should be shot in their training. Just so they know, hey, this is what I'm doing to somebody else. No, maybe not. Maybe that's too far. I feel like that's probably too far. You can't go that far. Not on Twitch, not on YouTube, not on anything. After that, Walker said that the NYPD's strategic response group arrived. The group often travels on bicycles and has been photographed using them to forcefully control protesters. Walker said march organizers had specifically demanded that they not mobilize anywhere near our march. Shortly after they arrived at Washington Square Park, Walker alleged that police rushed and arrested several people in the east corner of the park. He said that they then played a role requesting that people who were dancing in the street move out of the street. Our marshal team, myself included, got to the area and proceeded to encourage people to get out of the streets in order to protect themselves from NYPD violence. Yeah. I mean, but why? Again, NYPD violence. The police are literally only there to do violence. Only there to do violence, really. I mean, ultimately, if you don't comply, they will do violence to you. We allow this. This is our dominant, this is our hierarchy, right? Violence can't go up towards the police. It's unheard of. You never hear news stories about people going after the police or attacking the police physically because it's just something we don't allow. And I agree with that. I think it is a relatively good system, but I think over the past few years, I think we've been seeing that there needs to be civilian oversight in the police. The fact that the police are the people responsible for being in charge of the police makes absolutely no sense. In what world does that make sense? Seriously, if the corruption is just inherent, right? Why is there no civilian oversight in the police? Get somebody who hasn't been twisted into this unfeeling, uncaring. Again, it's hard. I have a weird relationship with the police. The police are in this location of the world are my customers. I work for they're my clients, right? I work for them. We do biohazard cleanups for them. A lot of crazy stuff. And I've had negative interactions with the police as well. So I am kind of balanced, but also my brother has family in law enforcement. I know that sounds weird. He's my half brother technically, but he's just my brother in my mind. But he has family in law enforcement, and he really did change my mind, change my perspective, and open my perspective to be more pro-police. But it's hard to be pro-police when so often they misrepresent themselves. But it's just so hard when the organization is so large. Of course you're going to get outliers like Derek Chauvin. But again, the saying is a bad apple spoils the bunch. Not, oh, it's just a few bad apples, so it's fine. The rest of the apples are fine. It's like, no, I think once there's a bad apple in the bunch, maybe you should just do a cursory glance and just turn the other apples around and look for rot. Just take a look at the whole precinct. I know it's going to cost a lot of money and it's going to take a lot of time and resources, but you know, so does making cell phones, and they seem to make those okay. He said that people moved as requested, and the officers moved north up 5th Avenue away from the crowd after people began asking them to leave. Things were calm after that, Walker said. NYC Pride, which opted not to host its Pride March for a second time, announced in May that it would ban uniformed officers from marching in the parade. The decision and Reclaim Pride's abolitionist stance reflect tensions between law enforcement and LGBTQ people, particularly black, queer, and trans people who report more harassment and violence from the police. Totally, these people, black, queer, and trans people, and people who are mixtures of those, because of intersectionality, of course they're going to get more harassment and issues from the police because they have more social pressures put on them because of how they are. But also, I mean, I'm sure there's some sort of discrimination from the police because most police are just good old boys, right? So, I don't know. Like, it's hard to know. It's hard to know. And also, I would imagine most police officers are very different from each other because it doesn't matter what job you do. I'm a janitor, my wife's a janitor, my brother's a janitor, and my dad's a janitor. But we're all so different at it. We all do different jobs completely because we're all very different people. And I think you see that in the police, and I think there needs to be transparency and there needs to be accountability. And I think the only way to do that is to get civilians in there. And really, realistically, I think the way you get civilians in there in a meaningful way is by reestablishing the Fifth Estate as something that's really important to people, right? So the Fifth Estate, or it's the Fourth Estate, it's journalism. It's the idea that journalism is this big, important force in the world. And I believe that fundamentally it really is. I love journalism. I'm not a journalist. I didn't go to journalism school. I went to broadcast school. It's a little different. I think that if you had a team of journalists whose entire job was just to cover the police and make sure that they're held accountable and that the good stories get put out there and the bad stories get put out there, and each town should have a department of people who hold the police accountable so that people know what the police are doing. People know if law enforcement is going well, bad, or not so good. There's no transparency. I have no idea how the law is going in Belleville, despite how much I Google. You could listen to a police scanner and kind of get an idea, but they're not open about this. They're not transparent about this. And I think that's a big part of the problem. It's part of the reason we don't trust them. It's part of the reason we don't like them. But we need them. These people are working really hard, and they do a job that is basically impossible to do for most people. So we need to find a way to get them more funding, not less funding. How are you going to make the police better by taking away all their money? Makes no sense. Now, Canadian police go through are a lot different. We do have SWAT vehicles, but it's not like we have armored tanks, and there's not like a militarization. Is militarization a bad thing? I don't necessarily think so. I think the military is a much better run organization than the police, but I also think that the main difference between the police and the military is that the military, I mean, when they're in wartime, effectively gets no oversight really from Congress. They can kind of just push and make their own decisions whenever. I mean, like, when was the last time Americans had to vote on a war? Like, hey, do we go to war? Let's all vote. Never really happens. In terms of war, America is more of a technocracy, I find. In a technocracy, I learned this from Vosh's. By the way, he doesn't need my help, but check out Vosh's Politics 102 video if you want to learn more about political definitions, because there's a lot of language that people use in politics that make absolutely no sense. And that was one that I thought was kind of interesting, and I forgot what word it even was, so whatever. We're almost done this story, so we can end the stream and I can eat something, because I'm a freaking hungry boy right now. Janice Rose, a technology journalist from Brooklyn, said that she saw about 24 NYPD vans surround the park at 7 p.m. Basically, there was nothing going on, Rose said. Like I've seen countless times before, everything was peaceful before the cops showed up. Talia Jane, an independent journalist who tweeted about the event, told NBC News that she saw one officer shoving a barricade into a woman as police moved the barricades around the arch outward after the crowd had shoved it inward toward the arch. She said then the officer used pepper spray. So, differing accounts of, like, were the police the aggregators? Aggregators. We got this from a news aggregator. Were the police the aggravators in this situation, and does that matter? I would say that the police are probably not the aggravators in the situation. I mean, they do act in ways that, like, they're supposed to be de-escalating, but oftentimes they escalate situations. But just because you escalate a situation doesn't mean you're the one aggravating the attack. Really, I mean, like, if you escalate, like, there's nothing wrong with challenging somebody on something that they're saying. That person doesn't have to take it and do something violent with it, right? At the same time, I totally forgot what I was going to say. I've been freaking talking and streaming for too long. But yeah, it just seems like there's oh yeah, I was just saying that, like, the police don't want to hurt you. I feel like they really don't want to hurt you. Even if, like, they might want to hurt you if you're harassing them or whatever, but they just want everything to be peaceful. That's their job. They don't want to hurt you. They don't want to make this into a huge thing. They just want to do their job and go home to their family. Most of them. Most of the ones I've met. Anyway. This was a serious one. I feel like I had some good rants in this one. I know nobody watched, but nobody likes the news. It's fine. I love the news. I'll keep doing it. I'll just be my own little Philip DeFranco doing it live here each day of the week on Twitch. So if you liked this, come back tomorrow. Maybe we'll do news or maybe we'll do games. It's kind of like a flip of the coin depending on what I feel that day. I was gonna do news stories today, and then I was gonna transition to, like, Minecraft or RimWorld or something like that. But it's like 9:35 now, and I gotta leave at like 10. So I better go. Anyway, if you guys like the stream, we're gonna go up to our main opening. Oh, I should have an ending one. I mean, it's kind of the exact same regardless. But if you guys liked this, I really hope that you give me a follow. Check it out. It was pretty cool. I think that it probably would be good if I took clips from this and then put it on my YouTube, just so that I could actually get some traction around these stories and get people looking at them. I just think this is really fun. I am pretty unprofessional. I understand that. One of the things that they teach you in, like, radio school, they teach you about journalism and, like, how hard journalism is, and of course it is, and what I'm doing is not real journalism. I just want to say, I'm not breaking stories. I am just a news commentator. That's kind of what this is kind of supposed to be. I'm just talking about the news because I'm interested in it. I like news a lot, and I listen to a lot of news. So I do have a background in just listening to thousands of hours of news stories and just knowing a lot of stuff. So I wanted to share my love with the world, and I hope you guys like it. And if you didn't, screw off. I don't care. Get out of here, nerds. Whatever. All right, we're done.